The James Show Podcast.
The fatal stabbing in North Carolina on the train in Charlotte of the Ukrainian refugee has got to be the most compelling thing that happened over the weekend and continuing in today. A couple of shocking things here. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? Because they were talking about it on the previous show. I think it was mentioned on the morning show. I don't know if Casey talked about it. But if you are just turning on talk radio or you haven't looked at your phone in 3 days, a viral video of a young woman who's a Ukrainian refugee, 23 years old, Iriana Zarutska, gets on a train in Charlotte, good old public transportation. And in the video, you see a fella behind her undo a pocket knife, stand up, and he starts to stab, and the video always freezes. Reports are he stabbed her at least 3 times, one of which was a fatal stab in the neck, and she died right there on the train. They continue the video after the stabbing later in the train. You don't get to see the body or anything, but he has blood that's dripping off of him, and it's a horrible thing. So let's go look at some of the details here on what makes this so compelling. Well, it turns out that this guy has been arrested. I saw 14 different mugshots of this fella. 14. Now, this happened 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. And someone pointed out that after it started going viral at the end of last week, I must have saw it 10 times over the weekend before I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. Someone actually stopped down and they did a search. Where has this been reported? And this is a story that's been largely ignored. As of yesterday afternoon, there had been no reports on it by ABC, NBC, CBS. There had been no reports by CNN. There had been no reports by MSNBC. Someone in the first list put NPR didn't do a report on it. And then they had Grok go through, and Grok said, well, no, in one of the audio-only podcasts that NPR released, it got mentioned yesterday. Okay, so there's no story about it. There's nothing written about it. If you search for it, it's not going to pop up. But in one of the podcast episodes, it got mentioned. So that's how little NPR paid attention to it. But you can just go through the list. I mean, it's the usual suspects. Nothing. And look, it's not just the ones that we know are biased. New York Times, you expect very little out of them. PBS, NPR. But it wasn't in the Washington Post. It wasn't in the BBC. It wasn't in the AP, the Associated Press. So what's going on with that? Up until yesterday afternoon, none of these outlets had reported on it. Parker, why is that such a big deal? Well, let's just go through the ways and reasons this could be a big story. By the way, they've started reporting on it now because they got humiliated. And the only reason most of us even know about this story enough to make fun of the people for ignoring it is Elon bought Twitter. If not for that, we wouldn't have known. The old social media platforms would have all buried it. In fact, all the other social media platforms, for the most part, did bury it. You didn't see it on your Facebook. You didn't see it on Insta, did you? No, but you saw it on Elon's platform. And to the credit, I did see it on Reddit too. But this is one of the interesting things that I think a lot of people have a hard time grasping about the media. The biggest lies the media tells are lies of omission. Because in this one, this fits so many of the metrics that you would think the media would jump all over. Here it is. It's a woman being attacked by a man. Aren't you guys concerned about women being attacked by a man? Aren't you the ones that are worried about the oppressive, tyrannical patriarchy and men are just abusing women for sport and not being held accountable for it, and we're just all headed straight to the Handmaid's Tale? But no, the ladies that were all wearing the pink hats, remember that was, in the shape of their undercarriage? They're not coming to the defense of this woman. They're not highlighting this story, even though it you would think it fits their narrative. Turns out this woman's Ukrainian. I thought you guys liked Ukraine. Turns out none of the outlets, none of the pundits with the Ukrainian flag in their bio was talking about this lady. Well, what's the matter there? I thought you guys really cared so much about the Ukrainians and so much about their well-being and so much about them being killed. You only care about Ukrainians when they're being killed by Russians? So that's another strange one. You can put on top of that, she's an immigrant. She's an asylum seeker. And aren't we so concerned? Isn't the media overwhelmingly concerned about the well-being of immigrants? You know, immigrants are under attack. It's a scary time for our immigrants. Doesn't this fit that narrative? No concern there. You care about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the human trafficker who beats his wife MS-13. You care about him so much so that you'll go visit him in El Salvador. Senator, various congressmen, plural. I have to hear headlines about it. We have to get updates on every court hearing from this guy, but no concern about this one. I thought y'all cared about immigrants. So no. Ladies, feminists, I should say, your causes take a back seat. Ukraine, your causes take a back seat. Immigration people, your causes take a back seat. Remember all those marches y'all were having about immigration earlier? Remember the marches you were having earlier in downtown Dallas about Ukraine? Remember the ones that you've had about, women being oppressed and patriarchy? You're all back seat. Well, that was a slip of the tongue. To the race narrative. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I just invented something. You're in the black seat now. Apparently, all of those concerns go out the window because the number one most important overarching narrative in the hierarchy of narratives, race. Congratulations, guys. You played yourself. This is Steve in Weatherford. You're on WBAP.
Hey, James. I want to pitch an idea. It's when this young lady would still be alive and have the rest of her life ahead of her, if the judicial system would have put this guy away a long time ago, because he's been asking for it a long time to be jailed. I think it's time to ask our legislatures around the country to create some legislation, a law that says if a family member can sue a judge and a prosecutor for malfeasance, these prosecutors and these judges will be a little more in tune to making sure bad guys stay out of the public's way.
Steve, we're all over you, but we're going to talk about that not in the next segment, but the segment after that. Because Elon had made a couple of tweets, and people were sort of adding to that in the comment section, where he was asking for a law change, not so we can civilly sue these people, but if you're the DA and or the judge who enable rape, murder, robbery, then we've got to come up with some charges for that. Remember, these are the same. A lot of these people think that gun manufacturers should be held accountable for the crimes that criminals do when they use their products. Well, can we not have some liability for the people who put them on the street after 14 different violent crimes?
We're seeing massive malfeasance from prosecutors and judges on criminals. They get back out there and hurt good citizens, and there needs to be a tool in place that says, Mr. Judge, Mr. Prosecutor,
agreed.
Do some more malfeasance if we don't own your home.
You're a step ahead of me, Steve. Stephen Weatherford. More on that coming up on the James Show. Coming up next, though, Chris Putnam from the Dallas Express. I just went through the list of national media outlets and international media outlets who were trying to ignore this and hope it goes away. The local media didn't do much better. Chris Putnam's coming back on from the Dallas Express. Welcome back, sir. I would say you're the alternative to the Dallas Morning News and the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, but you're kind of almost bigger than them now, so they're sort of the alternative to you. So welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much, James. Great to be back.
All right. Your reporting caught my eye yesterday. I don't mean yours specifically, but DallasExpress.com. Because when I saw on X, Elon Musk had retweeted the fact that as far as the murder of Ariana Zarutska happened, it hadn't been reported by the AP, PBS, New York Times, NPR, Wall Street Journal, BBC, CNN, or Washington Post. You added to that, the local media didn't do much better.
That's right. The Star-Telegram and the Dallas Morning News, at least as of this morning, I have been online a couple hours, but they had not reported the story at all.
Well, they have it. They have it on. Wait, do they have it on now? I thought I saw it on Dallas News right before I checked. Yeah.
They finally got it.
Wait,
they're only a day late.
Wait, no, it doesn't. There's some stuff that pops up, but none of it's about her.
I was going to tell you, I'd be shocked if they did. I mean, it's one of these stories that the lying legacy radical left media is just going to ignore. It just doesn't fit their political agenda and narrative, and they just won't report it. We see examples of it all the time.
Oh, no kidding. So the thing that makes this one so interesting, though, Chris, is how many buttons should it push for them? We're getting a glimpse into the hierarchy of the sort of intersectionality. Like, what's more important to them? Because they claim to be concerned about the plight of Ukrainians. They ignored this one. They claim to be concerned about the plight of immigrants, especially asylum seekers. No concern here. They claim to be concerned about the well-being of women and the violence that's being meted onto them by men. No concern from the pink hat wearing ladies out there. So I guess the race card trumps the Ukraine card, the women card, and the immigration card.
Yeah, they must be deeply conflicted on this one, right?
No kidding.
Yeah, it's a challenging one for them for sure. You know, as I pointed out, we see examples of it all the time. I think you and I actually talked about it on your show a couple of weeks ago, our story that went viral about the Arlington mayor, you know, verbally accosting in an incredibly obscene way a street preacher in New Orleans at a gay pride festival, and 10 million views of that story. Not one mention of it by the Dallas Morning News or the Star Telegram. This is the mayor of Arlington, Texas, the third largest city in DFW. Not one story.
Wait, no one else picked that up?
Nope, not locally.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't even know if anybody did it mainstream nationally, but it was, you know, of course, it was all over. It was all over X and independent media.
Dang,
and that's how this works now. It's like we have this bifurcated reality, you know, between real news and political narrative, and again, they will just pretend these stories don't exist. And as you and I both know, that is the single most viral story in America the last 72 hours.
Yeah, so it went huge over the weekend. It actually happened, August 22nd? So, more than 2 weeks ago?
The video came out.
Oh, okay. So the event happened on August 22nd, and the video came out, last week?
Just a few days ago, right.
Yeah, because I think I first saw it Friday or Saturday.
Yeah, it sounds right. And then that's when all of the social media commenting started about how there was just this absence of reporting on the story anywhere in the mainstream media.
Yeah, well, in my studio right now, I have one TV on Fox News, one on MSNBC. Fox News is throwing it in there every once in a while. MSNBC hadn't seen it once yet, but I'll let you know if I do. We're talking with Chris Putnam from DallasExpress.com. I think one of the real lessons here learned, besides the media is so dishonest and so hack and so untrustworthy, is, what do we do about preventing this in the future? It seems pretty easy. For a fella that's been arrested 14 times, stop letting them back out.
Yeah, my version of criminal justice reform is to build more jails and prisons.
Yeah, stop letting them out. It's I think is a good start. Well, look, we got a comment here from Nicholas on Facebook. He says the reason the media didn't cover the stabbing is because it wasn't gun violence. If she was shot, they would be all over it blaming guns. I don't think he's right on that one. I think the race card trumps the gun card. Yeah,
you might be right there. The race card seems to trump all cards. And by the way, another example here is you recall when the latest trans shooter murdered the children, the left media was very quick to say it was a MAGA Trump supporter. And the second that the manifesto was published and it was understood that this guy was very much on the opposite side of, that issue, the story went away. Totally went away. That's how they do it. It's so transparent. It's not even funny. Like at this point, and people are like, what are we gonna do about the mainstream media? What are we gonna do about the mainstream media? And the answer is really, really simple. We have so many new media independent alternatives now. We're one, of course, but there's a lot. And a lot of them are really excellent. If we stop giving them oxygen, they will just die and go away because nobody trusts them anymore.
But we're not giving them oxygen. It's the 4 million ladies that watch The View every day that are keeping it on. There's nothing we can do about that.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, they're gone too, as you know.
They're gone?
They went on hiatus, right?
But they take a break every summer. I think they're coming back like now or last week.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah,
it was sold a different way, but that may be the case. Yeah, but there's nothing. You can't do a lot about white liberal women with glasses and house cats, but they're not going to get the message regardless. They're not going to accept the truth. They're not going to look for the truth. They're just going to react to what they're being fed. That's a shame. I've been around a lot of people who don't share my political ideology, but you can have a critical discussion with them. They're critical thinkers. And, when you show people what the real truth is and just how absolutely corrupt and tainted the what I call the lying legacy media is, you can start to have rational conversations. But it starts with truth. Truth is what's important. And if you ignore big stories because they don't fit your political narrative and agenda, you're nothing more than a propaganda outlet. And sadly, that is what we've been dealing with. We've been living in a left-wing propaganda psyop, basically, for the last 8 years.
Posing as news.
Posing as news. I mean, and by the way, look at the examples. It's exhausting. COVID origins, Hunter Biden laptop. Joe Biden mental acuity was a conspiracy theory.
He was sharp as a tack. Masks work, lockdowns work. The vaccine will end the emergency. COVID didn't come from a lab. Jussie Smollett was attacked. The Olympics weren't mocking the Last Supper. Abrego Garcia is just a Maryland dad and not a gang member. Repealing net neutrality
pick a fake hate crime. Hands up, don't shoot. It goes on and on and on and on.
DART would improve traffic.
Yeah, and as Elon also rightly points out, it's because, he literally has got the data supporting it. The data that shows political contributions to one party over the other. And that's 90% of our media, 90%.
Agree.
It's like we talked about last week with respect to this dynamic in some of these Christian universities in Texas or conservative universities where the student body populations are, wildly conservative. But the administration and faculty aren't because people just don't go into those professional academia professions that are center right.
Right. All right, Chris Putnam. Check out his website, DallasExpress.com, and on social media. He does a lot of good sharing on Twitter and Facebook as well. Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate your time.
All right, James. You have a good one.
Good old public transportation. That's what they want you all on. No, it's safe. It's fine. What could possibly go wrong? Well, you could get stabbed a few times in the neck and die from a guy who's been arrested 14 times, from a DA and a judge who are like, let's turn him back out on the streets. What could possibly go wrong? I live in a gated neighborhood. I don't have to take public transportation. I'm not in any danger. Screw the people of my community. My feelings, my empathy, my virtue signaling, more important. My politics are more important. People are dying because of bad politics. You understand that? Because this is a greater outrage, or should be a greater outrage, than the death of anyone like a George Floyd or a Michael Brown or a Trayvon Martin. George Floyd died. You know what the world lost? A career criminal drug addict. That's what they lost. This was a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee. This is a young woman who hadn't even barely started her adulthood yet. She hadn't fallen in love and gotten married and had kids and started a family and experienced all the great things that happens with that. Having a wedding and a honeymoon and seeing the birth of your first kid and watching them grow up and go to school, first day of school, all that. She won't get any of that. And she didn't do anything wrong. She really was just some innocent bystander. The lie that you were told about George Floyd, about Michael Brown, about Trayvon Martin, she actually embodies the lie. Not a care in the world. Trayvon Martin wasn't just some happy-go-lucky guy skipping home from the gas station with the Skittles, minding his own business. He's casing apartments, looking in windows. The neighborhood watch guy stopped him. He started a fight that he ended up losing with his life. Michael Brown wasn't just some fella that was walking across the street and a cop came up, started harassing him. He didn't say, hands up, don't shoot. He wasn't on his knees getting killed execution style like the lying fake witnesses claimed. And George Floyd does not deserve one mural out of the hundreds that have been painted of this dude. He didn't deserve one funeral, but he got two giant ones while you aren't allowed to go see your own mother's funeral. This guy was beatified in that, or beatified. How do you say that? I'm not Catholic. Whenever they make you into a saint. Daniel Penny, top headline for months. You got to report when it happened. Not 2.5 weeks later after the video got released and the media ignored it and then social media had an uproar until finally there was some reporting done on it. No, the media made sure you saw that one. They made sure you saw that image of a white guy holding a black guy on the ground in a chokehold. They told you every step along the way. He's been arraigned. His bail's been set. Here's his next hearing. Here's evidentiary stuff. Here's when the trial starts. Here's some sketches with chalk on a grocery bag. What's going on during the trial? You got daily updates on that. Why? Because it's a white guy killing a black guy. That's it. So why is this one not making the news? Because it's a black guy killing a white person, a white lady. That's it. That is it. It really is that simple. And why is that such a big deal? It doesn't fit the narrative. You know, if they treated all these stories equally and reported on them without their pre-existing anti-white, anti-male, anti-American, anti-Christian bias, then there wouldn't be nearly as many BLM activists out there thinking, man, this country sure is unfair to black people. If they knew the truth, they would know this isn't a racist country. They would know you and I aren't racist, and WPAP isn't driven by race. They have to selectively report on this. They have to omit the story that's more common. Did you know when it comes to interracial violence, because the numbers are being tossed all over social media, you can go fact check this 10 times from Sunday. But if there's an interracial violent crime, it's 30 times more likely to be against me than me be the perpetrator. You understand that? The likelihood that an interracial violent crime is going to happen, 30% higher. I mean, 30 times, not percent, 30 times more likely than the reverse. That it's a black perp and a white victim. That's the majority of it. But you wouldn't know that by watching the AP. You wouldn't know that by watching MSNBC or CNN. Look at the per capita numbers. Look at the nominal numbers. They all tell the same story. If you were actually presented with the truth in America, you would not say, boy, we sure do have a problem with white people. Would you? There's about 50 murders in this country every day. And you're only told about the ones that fit the narrative. What happens to the other 49, 48, 47 murders that you're not told about every day? Rest assured, that does not help the narrative, or they would tell you about it. Isn't this disgusting? Isn't the way the media picks and chooses stories unethical, immoral, and disgusting and racist? You know, just because it's anti-white doesn't mean it's not racist. It's still racist. You are still using race as the determining factor on whether or not a story has merit. That is sick, media. Fix yourself. So how do we change this? Well, there's not a whole lot we can do about the media. We can just call them out until people are shamed for being a part of it. Just like no one's proudly part of the Klan in your lifetime. Why? Because that would be a shameful event. But here's one thing we can do. The DAs and the judges who are so light on these criminals, this guy's a 14-time repeat offender. Hold them liable. Hold them liable. Look, criminal, civil, there's got to be something we can do. But this is going to keep happening as long as we have the same DAs and judges. Who put them in office? Who funded their campaigns? What team are they on? Are they on Team Red or Team Blue? Yeah, I think you know the answer to that. So if we can have laws and lawsuits against a bartender who overserves a person, and that drunk person goes out and, hits a family of four and kills someone in a minivan, why aren't judges accountable after letting a 14-time repeat offender out? And then he goes on and murders a woman on video, no questions. There's your fix. There's one of the fixes. My next guest, Richard Stern, Heritage Foundation, is going to come give you the skinny on what's really going on with the economy here. We got a new jobs report. I don't trust MSNBC and CNN because they're too much biased against Trump. Fox News can kind of be too much biased in favor of Trump. So, Richard Stern, what do you see in the latest jobs report? Good, bad, somewhere in the middle?
Well, thank you for having me on today to talk about it. I would say somewhere in the middle. So, look, there really was 4 years of massive destruction to America's businesses and middle-class families while Biden was president. And we've seen those headwinds all year. It really has still been less than a year of Trump being president. And I think you see those headwinds in the jobs report. But you still see some of the prosperity coming from Trump's deregulation, from the new tax cuts. So I think it's all in there.
Well, we still have a little bit of uncertainty because all the trade deals aren't done. China is on a new deadline here. Are we ever going to get past this?
Oh, I think we certainly will, but you're right. There's still uncertainty around tariffs and around the trade deals. And, a lot of businesses, both here and abroad, are delaying their investments because they want to see what happens. Now, that might sound bad, but, part of it is a lot of them would put investments elsewhere, and they're waiting to say, okay, well, let's see what the deal is. If the deal is good enough, then maybe we'll take money that we were going to invest in China and we'll invest it in Ohio instead. So, that's part of it. But to your point, that lack of certainty certainly does show up as a tempering of some of the growth you might have otherwise expected.
We're talking with Richard Stern from Heritage Foundation. I was expecting stability after the big, beautiful bill got passed. I wasn't a fan of everything in it, but it did extend the tax cut. So now businesses know if they hire someone what they're going to be costing them starting in January. So I figured that would be more of a boost than it's been.
Well, I would say this, though, right? You have to say, the headwinds that we were looking at really were quite tremendous. The uncertainty from trade actually is a lot for certain industries. And so, in some ways, as dissatisfying as it might be, you are seeing the boost from the tax bill. You're seeing it in some ways things aren't worse, right? So that's one part of it. But the other thing is, a lot of the tax provisions in there are new tax cuts for businesses. There's a brand new provision in there that cuts taxes if they build factories in America, something that's never existed before. And so, things like that will take time to pay dividends, but they will pay tremendous dividends over time.
Well, Richard, we're expecting the Federal Reserve to cut the interest rates this month. Will we see a boost out of that, or is that rate cut already built in?
So that rate cut's built in some places, but not in other places. Now, I will warn you, though, the Fed cut rates by a full percentage point at the end of last year, and mortgage rates actually went up, which doesn't happen usually, but can happen. So, at the same time, though, if the Fed cuts rates and businesses really are as hungry as we think they are, then that will lead to more growth, but it remains to be seen. So stay tuned. It's anybody's guess.
All right. Richard Stern from the Heritage Foundation. Good chat. I appreciate your time, sir.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
The James Show Podcast.